all-female panel. We love to see it. What a great way to finish the first half of day 2. So we, of course, are still joined by the wonderful Shaa. Everybody give her a round of applause. That was so powerful. Thank you so much. And we're going to come back to lots of the themes you covered in your keynotes. We're also joined now by Amy Hopper. You're the founder of TOA Group, a consultancy which helps companies to build better performing teams while keeping well-being at the forefront, it can be a tricky balance, right? So we'll come back to that. Joanne Howes, welcome, founder and CEO of The Change Creators, an award-winning coach you are, and a behavioural expert. You've worked with clients including Amazon, the BBC and McCann, just to name a few. You're very welcome too, Joanna. And last but not least, Nicky Avram. So you're a workforce and leadership expert and an employment lawyer who works with companies ranging from startups to FTSE 100 giants. So hoping you can tell us some of the secrets and how they handle some of this stuff too.
I will try.
So I think a really powerful note to start on, and I think it bridges us from that amazing session on resilience to the topic of this panel, is to draw a little bit, Amy, on your story. I know we have limited time, but I mean, there aren't many stories that demonstrate resilience in such spades as your personal story. Can you, in as brief a way as you can, I know there's lots to cover, but can you just give a flavour to our audience?
Of course. Started a business at 25, hit by a car at 26, wheelchair, having to rebuild my spine, my body, having to run a business while undergoing spinal fusion surgery, and then very, very sad having that surgery, going into lockdown, and then losing my husband to suicide a few months later. So doing that, trying to run a business, trying to just the last few years have been colourful, to say the least. Hence why I do what I do now.
You are amazing. Give her a round of applause, everyone. Wow. So powerful. So how do you, you were talking about resilience, how we keep going. How do you find that resilience to keep going faced with such adversity?
I mean, I think having a growth mindset is a really, really important part. As Shaa was saying, you have to have the community around you. You have to have really good people that have got your back no matter what. I think in the early stages, obviously running a startup business and having the surgeries, hybrid working was the only way that business would have survived. We had hybrid working as part of my agency before it was even a thing, before it was even called hybrid work, because that's the only way that I could run the business. And people, you have to trust people. You have to trust people to do their jobs, not micromanage, and just get it done and be flexible with the time that they're going to do it in, and so that you can do your job and do what you're meant to do, not trying to control them and see what they're doing every single day.
And so when I hear that word micromanaging, it makes me think immediately of the big companies. Not that you are one yourself, Nicky, but of course you work with them. There is more of that mindset, isn't there, in larger companies, that you have to micromanage people, you have to know what they're doing, performance management, etc. Do you think they've had a harder time getting their heads around remote working and hybrid working?
Yeah, I mean, you can be top-down leader in a hybrid environment as well. And by the way, I've been guilty of being a top-down leader. I was leading people from quite an early stage in my career, and I was kind of trying to emulate my predecessors, kind of, I'm a tough leader, this is what I have to do. But actually what I found is that that just stifles people. When you're sort of telling them what to do every step of the way, as opposed to aligning everyone on the objectives of the organisation and embedding them in that culture, in the kind of workflow ecosystem, it just stifles people. But yeah, I think big organisations, small organisations are guilty of the same thing. And in fact, SMEs can find it difficult to step away from the doing, from the being in the business, micromanaging. The job of a leader is to align people and to empower people, to put all of that work into empowering and enabling. Now I say leaders should be the custodians of people's career growth. Align what their strengths and talents are and align those with the objectives of the company. I always say, everything that's happening, technological advances and everything else, the most untapped resource in any organisation right now is the untapped potential of people. So you don't get that by micromanaging and top-down leading.
Joanna, where does, as a behavioural expert, you know, where does that mindset come from?
It comes from the place that you think you're helping. So I work with a lot of leaders, and if you go, the main thing they do is they want to rescue, they want to fix. They actually believe that's what their role is. That someone comes to you with a problem, it's like, oh, I've got all the experience, I'm your leader, I'll fix it. And it's actually really hard to sit back. And I actually did a session with someone the other day, and it took us 15 minutes to get them to realise they just needed to ask a question. You know, what have you thought of? What solution have you come to? What would you like to do? If there was no such thing as failure, what would you do? And because they're so used to going, here's the answer. So there's a lot of this thing of you've got to be the hero and what you've seen leadership mean. But it's actually letting go of that and going, actually, by leading is actually letting you elevate your thinking, not doing the thinking for you.
Shaa, what kind of leader do you think you are? And I say this as somebody who used to work for Shaa in quite a brief period, and that makes it sound terrible, like we had a bad breakup. We didn't. It was
the first time you're speaking.
That would be awkward, wouldn't it? It was a bit of consultancy work. But yeah, what kind of leader are you? And how comfortable are you with the hybrid working setup?
So let me answer that in reverse. So I think if you hire adults, you should just expect them to act like adults. And I think the hybrid working environment is the best of both worlds for most people. However, I think where possible, if you really want to grow a relationship within the team, you need to find some time where you're actually physically together. I am not a proponent of completely remote work unless that's the only option that you've got. I do believe that when you hire people, you hire adults and you should expect them to act as adults. And if they're not, you've just hired the wrong person. The hybrid working isn't the problem. The problem is you've hired the wrong person. One thing I would say, and I will answer about what kind of leader I am. One thing I would say is that I'm seeing right now is I have a fear for the younger generation. I have a fear for people, 20 to 25 who are thinking that they only want to work remote. I don't think they fully understand what they're sacrificing by making that decision. Again, we're here, we used to work together in a physical environment. That's how you build relationships. So I do think that actually some of the problems we talk about aren't actually the problems we should be talking about. The problems we should be talking about is there's going to be a whole generation of people in the workforce who haven't been able to build the relationships and the network that we have over our period of time. So I think that's a different conversation, but one that I think is very important to address. What type of leader am I? I think I'm a very impatient leader. I think I'm very impatient, and I'll be really honest. I should just be in the chief visionary role and like a tech person, put in a corner, go do the deals, go and do the things, make it all happen and let somebody else manage the people. And I think part of that has been very self-aware. I typically get on with entrepreneurial type people, even if they're working in the business. I like people who act fast, who think fast. I never care if people make a mistake. If you make a mistake, I've got no issues with that. I don't like chasing people. So the micromanaging piece that we're talking about, you shouldn't have to chase people, right?
Because then you can't take it out of your own mind.
No.
And it's still in your brain, and you've got more and more stuff.
So I think I'm an imperfect leader. That's what I would say.
Everyone is.
Yeah,
all are.
I think I'm an imperfect
You should be.
Is everybody an imperfect leader in this room? Or in reverse, do we have any perfect leaders? Because we're
and if you are, can you come teach us? Right?
Yeah.
So returning to the theme of hybrid working, so big companies like JP Morgan, other banks, and in fact News UK, so we have to be back in the office 3 days a week. One of my best friends works for JP Morgan, they have to be back 5 days a week. We're seeing this march back to the office. Amy, what's your take on that? And is that a disadvantage for them and an advantage for smaller companies that might be able to pick off great talent as a result?
Absolutely. I think, the lovely Jamie Dimon of JP Morgan and some of his comments on hybrid work, I think there's several things we have to look at here. So when you've got the big names, they kind of can say everyone back in the office because everyone wants the name on the CV. So people will go through it and they'll go, oh, okay, well, I'll do 2 years, I'll do 3 years. I've got to go through this. It's not the situation I would like, but I've got to be in the office. They were also in a situation where, say, for example, Dell, when they said everyone's got to be in the office, and if you don't, we're not going to give you promotion. 50% of people said, don't give me a promotion then. I'm not coming in. Because they realised that the hour commute there, the hour commute back, getting ready for work, not being at home, it wasn't worth the money that would be exchanged for a basic promotion. They're going to lose talent. They're going to lose retention. They're going to lose the ability for the younger generation coming through who realise that it's not about the check. They're much more focused on well-being. They're much more focused on a better work-life balance. And they're not as bothered about having that big name on their CV in exchange for that well-being and that ability. Another thing in terms of that I always find, because I'm a sociologist and psychologist by training, and when I'm working with these big CEOs or C-suite teams, I think these people have got executive assistants, sometimes several executive assistants. They're not picking up their prescriptions. They're probably not going to, to the odd PTA meeting. They're probably not going to have to do their food shop. All the basic things that us on the bottom, or whoever has to do, us Joe Blogs. And so when they're making these policies for people, if they're not practicing empathy, if they're not being authentic with their team, if they're not able to sociologically think of the wider picture and what their team and what their people have to go through, that they don't have to go through, how can they create policy that's going to be the best for their team members? And I had one of my lovely, lovely clients. He's such a lovely, lovely guy, very, very hardworking. He's gone from big corporate to starting his own business, which he's doing very successfully. But I said to him, what was the biggest shock of going from big corporate to starting your own business? And he said, losing my PA. And I said, oh, what? He said, that woman booked my vasectomy for me. And so he said, as soon as I lost her, I was useless. So when you're in a situation where you've got someone that's got to make policy for someone that would have to book their own vasectomy, how can you be in a mindset? You've got to practice empathy. You can't be in the tail stage of management. You've got to be in a position where you are listening to your people, listening to who's working for you. And when 86% of people say that they would rather have at least some element of hybrid working and working from home, that's a big number to turn around and say, screw you, we're not doing it.
It is interesting, though, because I've heard from unnamed sources that the reason JP Morgan and others are doing this is to force churn, actually, because they're trying to do more with less. They're using more technology. They actually want to reduce headcount, but they don't want to pay redundancies.
Yeah.
So I do think that's interesting too, but maybe we felt...
It's
strategic. Exactly.
Yeah.
I think that
that's what they're saying about, there's so much in the press about Amazon, who are the purported reason for mandated 5 days a week in the office is we want to build more of a collective culture. But similarly...
You can feel the nonsense, can't you? You can just,
It doesn't take 5 days a week to do that, but I do believe you have to be in. And I think that the balance, 3 days a week in, 2 days at home, or the other way around. I think the other thing is, by the way, being pro-female doesn't make anyone anti-male. I think that's something really important for everyone to recognise. But please, let's not get this twisted. Not everyone has the same 24 hours in a day. That story is just nonsense, because someone who is having to juggle childcare and take all of those responsibilities versus the person who can sit at their desk and have everything else sorted around them, they don't have the same 24 hours in the day. And I think we should be focusing on, this is maybe where I am a good leader, is you should be focusing on somebody's output, not on when they clock on and when they clock off. Are they delivering? Are they creating value in your business? And if they are, why are we tying them to constraints that make their lives harder rather than easier?
Because we were talking about this, weren't we, on the phone, and saying that, just because someone is sat at their desk 9 to 5 doesn't mean they're working 9 to 5. There's so much buffer time.
It's that presenteeism thing, isn't it?
Presenteeism. It saddens me, but I'm reading about more and more companies that are measuring badge swiping, keyboard activity. So you're rewarding, or you're measuring productivity based on someone's ability to sit in a chair, right? Or effort over impact. But for me, it's about intentionality. Whether I'm a proponent of hybrid working, right? I believe that we need human connection, but we also need periods of individual focus. But regardless, those companies that are crushing it at the moment are those who are being intentional about the way they're working, about the way they're asking their people to work, even office design. Right, there's so much in real estate, so much talk about humanizing real estate, workspaces, and there's really something to that. Being intentional about the actual framing of the conversation, around hybrid working with your people.
And creating spaces that people want to come to, right?
Yeah.
Joanna, I'd like to hear from you. So, because it does take different management skills, doesn't it? To manage a hybrid team or an in-person team, a fully remote team. And that's something that often leaders don't get their head around, or, you know, you get that whole thing about accidental managers, right? Managers, they just become managers because they're good at the day job. They have no formal training. And that becomes even more apparent when you get into the realms of hybrid working, doesn't it?
It does, because you've got to learn more flexibility and adaptability. And so many leaders, they just don't get trained. They get promoted with no training or help or coach or any sort of support. And the sort of thing I'm starting to see at the moment is just kind of too narrow thinking. So, for example, I work with a company at the moment and they still just assume that we'll do in-person training, but they've got markets all over the world. Or some people can't make it into the office, but there's no consideration for the people that will be on the screens. And they haven't really adapted their leadership to think, how do I do that inclusive leadership? So in terms of also, I've got a fully remote company and it's taught me so much. The best thing it's taught me is to let go. Because I think a lot of the people I'm finding that are asking people to come in, it's control patterns, uncertainty, passion. I can control you if I can see you, and I can trust you if I can see you. So there's some trust and control issues, which I definitely have. So getting a remote company was brilliant because it meant I had to learn to trust. I had to learn to let go, and as you say, go to outcome focused. And a big thing for me I'm noticing with leaders is the minute you stop asking people, you've got to earn my trust, versus, do you know what, I'm going to start by giving you my trust. Because I don't think if anyone in the room works well if you don't feel trusted. You're not going to. So where did we ever feel like you've got to earn my trust before I'm going to let you have something? But if I give it to you, what sort of performance would I see then? And the big thing I'm a big believer in is we've got to focus on connection. Leaders need to get those human skills of how do you connect with different types of people. You know, I'm a complete introvert. So for me, having 2 days, if I was hybrid at home, that's going to fuel my energy for those 3 days I am in the office. You make me go back 5 days, you're not going to get the best out of me because I'm exhausted. So for a leader to recognise who you are as a person as well and be able to connect with you, because if you can't connect with someone, connection. Channel 4 has just done a big study that if you don't feel connected, people don't trust you if they don't feel connected to you. And if you don't feel connected, you've got no trust, people aren't going to perform, you're not going to grow.
And on the note about performance, and by the way, we're going to come out to the audience now with roving mics. Can you put your hand up if you have any questions? Okay, super. We have some in the central part here. So how do you mentioned performance, you talked about output, Shaa, measuring by output, which sounds great, but it's also quite woolly. Like, do you measure something in particular?
Yeah, so I think the first thing is if you've got a remote team, you really have to have very robust SOPs, standard operating procedures. You have to make it very clear how things should be done. Don't just leave it by chance, right? Be intentional with everything you do. Set people up for success. Set your team up for success. So making sure that they know exactly how something needs to be done instead of just leaving it to the vagaries of their interpretation. Because if they interpret it wrong, that's your responsibility for not giving them clarity. It's not their responsibility for interpreting it the way that they interpreted it. So for me, output is having a very clear weekly set of goals. Like, what are the 3 key things that we have to achieve this week? If we achieve these and nothing else, it'd be a good week. Do those and then pile everything else on top of that is a bonus. Oftentimes, it's the simple things. Just the simple things, like clarity of communication within a team.
Nicky, does that resonate with you?
Definitely. I completely agree. But yeah, I think, you know, people need to be aware what success looks like, whether they're sitting on the kitchen table or, you know, in the office. And that's about communication. So yeah, measuring productivity success through sheer attendance makes absolutely no sense.
And also rewarding for the effort and intention of getting there, not just rewarding for the result.
It's a really great point.
Really, really important.
Right, where did we have those questions in the audience? Where's our roving mic? Roving mic? Thank you so much, Latifa. Why don't we save your legs and start this end and then we'll work our way across.
It's just a quick question. Do you think that who are upper managers then hire poor managers? And I know this of personal experience because I've got a stammer, which is a disability, and one of my managers once brought a tape into a meeting, duct tape, and basically said if I talk too much, they're going to put duct tape across my mouth. I reported it to the upper management and fuck all happened.
Well, I would have taken that to an HR lawyer and I would have taken it to court. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think in terms of psychology, you tend to mix meld with people who are of like. And if you're not a manager or a director, people come to me and say, what's the best thing I can do as a leader? I say, get therapy, because you need to be authentic, empathetic and self-aware.
And
honest. If you're not those three things, your team aren't going to trust you, they're not going to follow you. And you need them to trust you to implement any kind of change whatsoever. So in that situation, he's probably the hiring managers do end up hiring people that are like them. Perhaps they're fixed mindset, they hire someone else that's fixed mindset, and you do end up with many, many rotten apples.
Thank you.
Unfortunately.
Thank you, Amy. Gordon, you're only allowed one question this time.
Noted. Thanks, Hannah. Up until June last year, I led a global team of SAP support engineers. Since 2013, I've helped grow that team up to 700, fully remote, permanently. Now, my attrition rate for that team throughout that whole period was 6%, where the industry average was 37%. I'm inclined to agree with a lot of what you said this morning, but not everything needs to be face-to-face in an office environment. We've proved that. It's been great to get people together once every so often because they want to meet each other personally, to know who they're working with on a regular basis. But if you provide an environment where the people feel safe and know that they're allowed to make mistakes and not be, put down for it, it's an environment where they're happy to stay and work because they know that the boss has got their back.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the old saying, trying to take a horse to water and make it drink. My horses won't drink, they won't come into the office. I was like, yeah, but you haven't made the water look good enough.
It does go back to being intentional. Being really sort of focused on if you do have collaborative spaces and you want people to go into the office on certain days, what do you want them to go to the office for? Yeah. What do the people want to, what does the team want to go to the office for? What work benefits from which environment? Dropbox have done away with all their desks, right? And they've just created studios because they recognise that they need to dial up the innovation metrics. So they need more kind of spontaneous collaboration. And I'm not suggesting we've all got the kind of deep pockets of Dropbox, but there's different ways to do that. Serviced officers now, they offer, you can go in like twice a week, pay for twice a week, and make it really focused and intentional. I heard someone the other day say, you've got to make people's commute worthwhile, like that battle on the Northern Line, or whatever the commute is. Giving people the opportunity to thrive, and that's in every aspect of how you work.
And know that they're not going to be looked over and pried on while they're in that environment, which... Yeah, the boss has got their back.
Yeah, to pick up on being fully remote, because you say I'm fully remote and I can see it works brilliantly. I'm just curious for you, do you find, because what I've found that works really well is we've got to still bring spontaneity in, picking up the phone just now and again, not everything being so scheduled. And also you've got to have playfulness. You've got to, like every Friday we do a win of the week. We don't talk about any business, half an hour, we go around, what was your win this week? We celebrate each other, we do fun, we do gifts, we have banter, because suddenly if you're fully remote and you're on screen all the time and it's too serious all the time, and especially if you go back to back, we're not allowed to do back to back. You're always allowed to breathe, you're always allowed to move. So there's some real things you can do for fully remote, even if you're hybrid actually when you're online, to actually lead a bit differently and to respect that environment and what it needs. And you've got to get really good at reading the room. And if you feel people are uncomfortable, I can tell now when my team's a bit off or call it out. Are you okay? You're all right. You can have very personal conversations through a screen. It is possible.
And they're all those small things, aren't they, which add up to when we talk about culture. Yeah, exactly. Let's see, can we take the mic out? So there's one question on the end here from this gentleman, and then perhaps you can pass the mic down to the lady over here. Thank you.
Hi there, my name's Andrew Callahan. I co-run and co-founded an online language school with a couple of colleagues in Italy, and we all have a little question about resilience. And one of my colleagues in Italy has messaged me and wants me to relay the question to you. It's about how can we help a family member, colleague or friend or a collaborator that works with us, because we have collaborators that work with us all over the world to teach languages. How can we encourage them to become more resilient? A question for Shaa, but for everyone as well. What can we do to encourage them to be more resilient? What things can we do? What questions can we be asking? How can we facilitate their resilience just in small ways?
Thank you. We're just going to, 2 quick thoughts from you, Shaa, and also from Amy, and then we'll grab the other question before we run out of time.
Okay, so resilience is like a muscle. So the more you use it, the stronger it becomes. So the first thing that you can do is you can make sure it's really clear to your entire team that it's okay to not be okay. That it's okay to have challenges and it's really human. I'm as strong as they come, but I'm also weak. We're human beings. So that's the first thing. Make it an environment where everybody can be honest about what's going on. And then the second thing is to give them the support to be resilient. To say, okay, so you need to get some resilience right now and you're not feeling it. No worries, we're going to work through it with you. Because that's what's going to build the muscle. And the more they use it, the more it becomes stronger.
Cool. A quick thought from you, Amy?
I think the things that, in terms of being by yourself and working with, you need to have really, really good structure. Because not everyone can just be, oh, be resilient. No, you have a really, really good structure and you follow that structure at home, particularly when we're working remotely. If you haven't got structure, it's going to be very, very difficult for you to be successful. So make sure they've got good structure. They know when to say no. Is a really, really important one. And also for them to have some form of therapy. As you can tell, I love therapy. But if you are all of us have challenges, all of us have struggles, all of us have things that those days we think, oh my gosh, having someone that supports you, that is paid to listen to you, rather than a friend that you feel like you're burdening with your emotions, is incredibly important. Not only to have that release and not turn to things like alcohol and drugs, but also to practice your own self-awareness as well, so you can build up your own skills through, say, cognitive behavioural therapy, other things, so that you know what to do in the future when challenges come your way, as they will do.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And can you just pass the mic along to the lady? There we go. Thank you very much. We have 1.5 minutes on the clock.
Okay, hi ladies. I'm Sasha, founder of Malka London. So I was wondering, because we talk about employees and I guess full-time employees, but what about interns? Like how, as a founder, as a director, do you deal with interns without being too micromanaging, but at the same time giving them space, but at the same time it's like, yeah, how do you deal with that?
Who would like to take this one? Nikki?
I will.
Yeah.
As Amy was saying, I think it's about systemizing things. You know, we talk a lot about being in the office and everyone learns through osmosis, this magical thing called osmosis, right? You live and breathe the culture, knowledge acquisition, skill acquisition. You know, that's a kind of a by chance thing. You could be sitting next to a horrible individual who doesn't represent the company culture at all, or you don't learn anything from. Systemize it. There is so much. You know, you can have the in-person meetings, you can have the collaboration points. You can also, you know, use whatever technology to knowledge, skill share. Airbnb have a fantastic thing. They've turned mentoring on its head. I'm referring to all these kind of giants because we know them, right? But we can adopt it in our own way. They have a Mentern program where interns come in. They might be kind of younger, less experienced. Maybe they've got more tech skills. They exchange that with business veterans who perhaps have enhanced business wisdom. And there's a knowledge exchange and a knowledge sharing. And that creates this culture of growth and learning, and it's continuous, and it's living and breathing. So we can systemize that, whether you're an intern or more senior. You don't have to be in the office every day in order for that to percolate around for interns to learn about the company. It's how you build it into the systems, into the workflow and operations.
Thank you. Thank you, Sasha. That was a great question. And in fact, thank you for all your questions. But most of all, of course, thank you to our brilliant panellists, Nikki, Joanna, Amy, and of course, the wonderful Shaa. Thank you. Thank you. You guys can now head backstage where you'll be joined by lovely Ollie. Thank you so much. Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Joanna. Thank you, Nikki. That was an absolutely fascinating conversation, wasn't it? Did we enjoy that? It was good. So I think that was probably one of my highlights so far, having an all-female panel up here. Ollie, are you tuning in?
100%. I thought that was absolutely fantastic. I could have listened for at least another hour, and that would have given me even more time to think of the already hundreds of questions I've got in my mind. Thank you, Hannah. I totally agree. That was an absolute highlight, not just this year, but across all the years we've been doing this. Thank you. And I can't wait to see you after lunch. Thank you, Hannah.
Thank you, Ollie.
Meanwhile, we're backstage. How wonderful. I mean, spoiled for choice. Shaa, come and say hello. It's Shaa Wasmund. Wasn't quite expecting me to summon her quite so quickly. Nice to see you.
Hi.
Nasha, how are you?
Very good. How are you?
I mean, I found what you said on stage genuinely profound. Shaa said
the
something.
piece that I owed you my MBE? Was it that one?
No.
Not
What I'm talking about, Shaa asked us a question, which is, what are you carrying, which you could put down?
Yeah.
Just if you hadn't been tuned in, just remind us of the exact question.
So it's really a question I think you should ask yourself every week. What is something that you're doing that no longer serves you? What are you carrying that no longer serves you? So you might be doing something out of obligation or responsibility, but it no longer serves you. It might be people that you're carrying. And when I say no longer serves you, I really genuinely don't mean that in a way that you have to have some kind of monetary reward. But I think we all know that we do some things out of responsibility, but actually there's nothing coming back. And I think it's about being self-aware of the things that serve you and support you and the things that don't.
Well, I don't want to get too deep on this,
That's
Shaa.
okay.
I realised as you were speaking that some of us, me, might be carrying things that are actually in our future. So it might be a goal, a dream, a hope that we must put down, maybe not forever, but maybe temporarily, and see how that feels. Because there can be a heaviness there.
There can be. I think we can carry things that we think we want to do or think we should do, but it's been such a long time since we actually checked in with ourselves. Like, is this actually still what I want to do? And if it's not, that's okay.
Well, that's what I want to ask you. How do you decide what you want to do?
Oh, I feel so fortunate, Ollie. Like, you know my career. I've been able to work with so many incredible people that I now have got to a point where if it doesn't absolutely fire me up, if it doesn't make me want to jump out of bed every day, I just don't want to do it.
Okay, so...
I just don't want to do it. That's it.
I get that. The only conundrum is... The only conundrum is that we all know that sometimes the route to real joy is through the fire, is through discomfort. And yet, your North Star over there was joyful. So haven't you just circumvented the exact thing you should...
No, I haven't, because when you have a burning desire to do something, you will go through the flames to get there. That still lights me up. So when I'm jumping out of bed to do something, it's not because it's easy. No, that's a fallacy. You don't jump out of bed because something's easy. You're fired up and passionate because you are so aligned with what it is that you want to achieve that you will overcome whatever the obstacles are to get there. And in the process and the journey is enjoyable, even if it's hard.
What we'll have to do, Shaa, is an Elite Business Life spin-off, and we can continue talking about this. Shaa Wasmund MBE, always an absolute pleasure. Lovely to see you. Right, now, onwards with Joanne Howes. Oh, Amy, brilliant, what an absolute bonus. This is fantastic. Oh, lovely to see you. Thank you for being here, gosh.
What a surprise!
I mean, all part of the family here. Amy, thank you for being here at Elite Business Life.
You're welcome, it's a joy.
You spoke incredibly powerfully about what it takes to actually go for help from other people at very tough times in our life, right? And if someone's watching now, Amy spoke incredibly powerfully about going through not only an incredibly life-changing accident, also personal loss. For somebody thinking, how do I begin? I realise I need to seek some help.
Yes.
Help me think that through to find the person that can help.
I think first of all, it's finding that, having that self-awareness of I need some help is a huge step anyway. I think it's very, very difficult. All of us have these challenges. I mean, there's almost this want to keep it as a burden on our shoulders, to not burden other people with it, to not talk, to not express ourselves, particularly men, unfortunately. And first of all, to know that just asking for, I'm talking directly to Hannah now, to ask for help is incredibly brave. Yes. Incredibly brave. And to know that, I mean, we do this exercise when I do workshops about how do I know that someone around me is a person that I can share things to. And I think, well, how do they make you feel in your body? If you were to rate that person out of 10, Where 10, I think this person's great, I trust them, they lift me up, they give me a fire in my belly, they make me feel good about myself. And 1 is, they drain me, they're an energy vampire, I feel awful when I'm around them, I feel like I need to sleep after I've seen them.
Yes.
How would you rate them?
Really interesting. One of my favourite words, Amy, is propinquity, which is the affection we have for people based on the time we've spent around.
Oh, that's lovely. Can I steal that?
There's a Wikipedia wormhole in the video. I just want a bit longer with everybody, but we can't have it today. But Amy, thank you so much for being with us at Elite Business Live. Until next time. Thank you. Really nice to see you. Thank you. Right, now it is time to meet Joanne Howes. Straight from the main stage. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you.
So I think this is fascinating, everything in this conversation, but I'm going to put a question from one of our audience to you. And it's about building culture. And I think our audience member has written in because they want some practical tips.
Okay.
So what have you learned? Because you work with some world-class companies.
Yes. So building culture is what's most important that you want to be experiencing every day in your company. Okay. So it starts with the leaders. What's the behaviours that you're doing that you want everyone else to be doing? Now, the challenge is at the moment, I was working with someone recently and I said, well, actually, the values you're living at the moment is frustration, impatience, but you're wanting all this joy and bravery from your team, but you're not doing it yourself.
You've got to model that.
You've got to model it first and you've got to get clarity on what it is. And the whole thing is people go, right, here are our values. And I'd also recommend people co-create their values. I worked with a brilliant company that hired this boat on the Thames, took all their team, they co-created all the values together. So then there was a sense of ownership.
Nice, yes, and it's that co-creative.
I belong, yeah.
Forgive us being pushed for time, Joanna. You said something powerful on stage about sensing when people are feeling uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And yet part of my gut says there is a time for discomfort. There is a time for difficult conversation. And yet I'm contradicting myself when I say that inclusiveness is about making people feel comfortable. Help us navigate.
How we do that. Context is everything. Well, we had a situation with my team where we could definitely tell there was something wrong. And people weren't saying something wrong. And this is where part of your culture as well is building that psychological safety in your culture that people can share. But the main thing is you can call it out, say, I'm noticing you're not okay. Is this a time in the room that you would like to talk or do you like to do this private? So you can literally give that option, you give that control to the person. Yeah.
I wish again we had another 10 minutes. Joanne Howes from Change Creators. Very nice to see you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, onwards with our final guest from the morning, Nicky Avram. Welcome back, Nicky. Very good to see you. Hello. I mean, you've got a client list to envy, and thank you for being with us today.
Pleasure.
What do you think the best employers realised over the pandemic about the way they could work as opposed to the way they were working pre-COVID? What's the enlightenment been, do you think?
I think, I've been a massive proponent of flexible working, which is a bit different, but includes hybrid working, an early adopter of it. But it wasn't always recognised as a way of working without a stigma. So I think there's a realisation that we can be productive and we can have human connection even if we work in a different way.
And there's a sensitivity, isn't there? And it came out a few times in today's conversation around over-monitoring, surveillance, checking in and out. And yet I can imagine a guest at home saying, well, when they were building the pyramids, the ancient Egyptians clocked in and out, the Roman, this is centuries old. I sense it's something more happening about trust, though.
Yeah.
And there is a line to tread for employers.
Yeah, this is, there's so much around the want of people to work autonomously and the appreciation for that, right? If we look at the number one antidote for disengagement, it's people working more autonomously, having control over the way they work. So that's around the conversation about hybrid working. That's around how they adopt technology. PwC did a survey. It showed, right, that nearly half of employees would sacrifice 20% of an increase of salary for more autonomy.
Right, so on that autonomy, and key, if we look back to Dan Pink's work on Drive, fundamental to workplace enjoyment, okay? Is there a challenge? If we follow that path, it leads to treating everyone in their own individual way. Fundamentally unfair.
No.
Wrong.
Wrong, no.
Carry on.
No, this is not a free-for-all, right, where everyone gets to do what they want.
Okay.
This is about drawing individual strengths, hearing what people have to say, and then collaborating, right? I said in there, a job of a leader is to align people around the objectives, the goals of the organisation, but also to tap into their potential, because that's the gold dust.
Yeah.
And if you don't do that, the organisation's missing out. So you've got to draw both together.
First, speaking of gold dust, thank you for bringing so many gold nuggets to us today, Nicky Avram. Very nice to see you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
You.
That's Nicky Avram, who completes our lineup for the second or the first